Is this the dawn of the new era, the new offenses, the new quarterbacks in the NFL? Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, both Heisman Trophy winners, both first-round picks, and both the faces of their franchise.
So, the game of choice was the Arizona Cardinals at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens victorious 23-17, but more than the scoreline, this was a game with two great quarterbacks, two great fun-looking offenses, and some actual defensive play, which you didn't really expect from these teams, or especially Arizona. Ollie, what were your thoughts, original thoughts coming from this one?
I was most impressed by, you teed it up nicely there. First of all, about the use of great for two of them. One of them's been in the league 2 weeks. No one loves Kyler Murray more than me, but come on now. Come on, great. Joe Montana is great.
I know.
Let's relax on the fucking superlatives early on. Baltimore's defense is among the spiciest in the league, and all we've heard all offseason is rush-only offense. Lamar's going to reinvent the game. Are they going to run the wishbone? And then they come in week 1, they crack Miami. He throws from the pocket. It looks easy. Week 2, he throws from the pocket. He throws on the run. He looks just amazing. They're running all the motions and shifts, and it's backyard football, but it's condensed formations, and it's just exciting college stuff brought to the NFL. We've all begged for it for, 10, 15 years. But I'm watching it, and they are really, really fast defensively. And that's the only thing I look for really early on in the season. Is obviously the scheme stuff I'm really interested in. But sometimes teams just look quicker than everyone else. They've just gathered so many great athletes at the peak of their powers. They look fast. And Baltimore looks so quick on defense. They're running a bunch of different fronts up front. They run more trap stuff on the back end than anyone in the league. Maybe Dallas is close there. But they just added Earl Thomas to an already ridiculous defense. And it just felt unfair.
Yeah, and what I will say is that the Ravens actually probably played a slightly different version of themselves from their last year and week 1. And this is something they had to do because of the air raid. You saw Earl Thomas play single high almost the entire game. And I would totally agree. You look at Marlon Humphrey. The guy flies around the ball. He's an absolute stud. Patrick Onwusa, the linebacker, the peanut, got that from Tillman. Honestly, he almost deserves it. He absolutely flies around the ball, hits people hard. Another linebacker from the Ravens who is going to be a star. And you all across this team in their front, they've got people like Patrick Ricard, who's probably the most versatile player to ever play the game. I've never seen someone in one game play as an offensive lineman, a tight end, a defensive lineman. He was on the edge. He played all of special teams. And he was really good at all of them, which is something I don't think I've ever seen before. And yeah, this team is really exciting. And they held the Cardinals to 17 points.
The big thing with playing fast too is this is gonna sound like awful cliche, so please forgive me. But it's not just raw speed. Everyone on earth in the NFL is a world-class athlete. There is not a bad one. Even the safeties who look slow are world-class. Even the teams that have fast players don't always play fast. You have to understand the scheme. It's more instincts combined with some athleticism than it is the other way around. You know, if you don't read the play right, you can't just make it up with raw speed. A special few can. The amount of ground Earl Thomas covers, and then the amount of ground that allows others to cover, i.e. they're covering less ground so they look quicker, has a frightening effect on the back end of that defense.
Yeah, and it showed. They only allowed 3 of 12 conversions on 3rd and 4th down. Only 20 yards and 11 carries in the run game. Kyler Murray did nothing with his legs because you've got those guys who can spy him. They're quick enough to match him, and it really did show. They stopped the Cardinals 3 times inside the 10-yard line, which was some awful lack of onions from Kliff Kingsbury, I must say. But we'll talk about that when we switch it over onto the other side of the ball. But yeah, really impressive from this team. Wink Martindale, the DC's really got them going. The big worries about this team was where's the edge pressure? Where's it coming from? We're still not really seeing it. Matthew Judon is a special player, but he can't do everything on his own. Tim Williams and Tyus Bowser's both really offering nothing still, which is, coming out of college, they both look like steals.
Williams is the concerning one because if Williams was going to be good, he'd have been good right away. Because there was nothing on the field of any concern about him. It was all the off the field stuff. It was the weed smoking. It was getting in trouble, all that jazz. There was maybe one or two players in his class springier than him. And if you have springboard, you should be in the backfield at least 2-3 times a game, right? Even if you don't always get home, it should be so frightening because you just beat a guy out of his stance clean cold and he has to throw you to the ground, or you don't have the strength, or he can re-anchor and recover. And we just don't see it. And maybe you get one flashy game. So he is very, very close to me to that it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and he is a grown-ass man as well. It's not like some of these players, they're a project, they've still got to grow into their own body almost. He's a grown-ass man.
That was the difference with him and the guys that came out. We had this treasure trove of year-by-year guys who came out of Mizzou. You had Shane Ray, you had Charles Harris, and so on. And they were all, again, just like leap-and-go athletes. It was all beat you out your stance and you cannot recover. He was speed to power as much as anything else. He's playing at Alabama. He's rotating every snap with these behemoths. Like, you have to be able to hold the edge. So, to me, he was one of those guys. I agreed with you, what you said there. He should have been the steal of that draft if he was on the field. He has been on the field, and he has not been the steal of that draft. So, to me, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I think that stretch there where they went Williams, Bowser is probably one of the most disappointing parts of Ozzie Newsome's tenure. These guys looked like they were legit. Tyus Bowser can't even really be successful in special teams. I watched the All-22 of this one, and he was utterly miserable on special teams.
He's just positionless, right? He was coming out. Every team thought they could use him in a different way. And sometimes you find a guy like that, like Kyle Van Noy, where he goes to Detroit, they try and use him one way, it doesn't work. He goes to New England, they use him in 20 different ways every game, and it just works perfectly. Maybe he will latch on somewhere else. Maybe a coach can figure him out. Maybe he just has a good run of form at some point. I just cannot pin down what he does that well.
No, I totally agree. And I've just realised we've gone through this whole Ravens defense without even mentioning Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams. Chris Wormley.
the names kind of essential. On. Yeah.
Like, these guys just kill offensive linemen. They just take up 3 of them in one go. They eat them up for a living. And, it's been Miami and Arizona, so it's nothing to really talk about. But you don't run on these guys. And if you don't run on these guys and you see how athletic they are in the secondary, this team can be very, very special.
It can. It's just... third down, like you said, the exhilarating this week on third down, a great performance week before, great on third down as well. Pretty easy on third down last week, if we're all honest. That is the major concern. Is third and medium, I'm still not convinced, because unless it's Judon, I'm not sure where the pressure's coming. Then will they scheme pressure? The fortunate thing is, they just went into free agency and grabbed a Hall of Famer on the back end in the middle of his prime. So, no biggie.
And it's really unfortunate they're going in to play Kansas without Tavon Young and without Jimmy Smith. Tavon Young out for the season. He was out all of last season, and the Ravens still made him the highest paid slot in the league. So that shows you what they thought of him. So now without Jimmy Smith as well, we've got Brandon Carr playing in at the slot with Anthony Averett coming in there as well with Cyrus Jones, who's a punt returner. So they're a little light, and they've got to go into Kansas with, a couple of bare bones at the back.
That's tough. I'm calling Anthony Everett over. I'll put the over-under at 2.5 PIs or holds. What are you taking?
I would go with the over.
Really? Wow, that's a lot. He is one of the grabbiest players college football has had in 10 years. He just loves it. I don't think he knows it's a penalty. And in college, it's only 15, so no big deal. But it's going to really cost him against Patrick Mahomes.
He was really unlucky in this game. Carter threw a couple of back shoulder fades that literally brushed his helmet, his shoulder. He just didn't locate the ball. So I feel like you look at his ratings, his PFF score maybe, and they'll be pretty harsh on him. But he was nearly there. He nearly made the plays. And that's all you can ask from your 5th or 4th corner, is just be competitive.
Yes.
So we'll see. And so I guess that's enough for the Baltimore defense. They're good.
Yes.
And I think we can all agree on that. from what you saw, what do you think of Kyler and the Arizona offense?
I mean, I don't think it can be overstated before you even get into the schemes and the tape and all that stuff. The difference, the night and day difference from them to last year with basically the same team, right? Like there are changes, there's a giant schematic change, but you just go position by position, it ain't all that different. And even if it's swapping players out, it's pretty much the same body types and the same level of player. They haven't radically transformed any position really outside of that one, and they've gone from being genuinely one of the worst offenses in history, not hyperbole, by the numbers, just catastrophically bad. If they weren't 32nd in the category, they were 31st in every single advanced metric Bill Connolly can find for us, right? That's how bad they were. In the recorded history Bill Connolly's gone back to, which I think is since the Panthers came to the league, nobody has even been close to being that bad at everything. Usually you fluke your way into somehow being good on fourth down. They couldn't even manage that, right? They fired the OC, 7 weeks into the season? An unmitigated disaster. Kyler arrives 2 weeks there, hovering around the middle of the pack in most categories. Yeah. That's about as insane a leap as you can make.
And I know at the start of the show I said great with my offense, not necessarily meaning it, but I think it's just from the change and the evolution of this team. We all knew they were going to go spread or air raid, and they've averaged 3.53 wide receivers per play and 0.4 tight ends, so they're hitting that 10 personnel. And it's working for them. They don't even have Andy Isabella active, so he's not working out for them at the moment. But you've got guys like Keshawn Johnson making plays. The ageless wonder, Larry Fitz, he's still balling. Him versus Brandon Carr, by the way, probably one of the most favourite things I've seen in a long time. These dudes are ancient, and they're both really good.
Really good, an amazing duel. And the big thing about this game with Larry Fitz is you say, yeah, they haven't used tight ends or whatever. They haven't in terms of, if you look at the depth chart, who's listed as a tight end, but they're using guys. I mean, they're using these condensed splits, and Larry Fitz is aligned in a 2-point basically as a tight end, right? He almost looks like a gunner on a punt return team. So they are it's false to say they're not using a tight end. They're not using the players who are listed down as tight ends. Yeah, because the guys are still blocking. Larry is still doing the famous crackback stuff he always does, or more of a seal with how he's playing now. And it's the same route tree. It's a lot of deep overs. It's a lot of quick bend and go the other way type stuff. So they're using tight ends. They're just using it from the same personnel grouping. So if they catch someone out, they can then split. And that's the creative freedom they have, because they don't have a tight end who is like a Gronk Hernandez type who they can both go at the same time. They're doing it with receivers instead, and these really tight condensed formations, which you would only see from other people that have H-backs or someone like George Kittle. So they're kind of doing it with body types rather than position groups.
Yes, and I would say that they use Fitz like that in this game. Having Earl Thomas single high, they wanted to try and bring him up the field, bait him up the field, and you saw Larry Fitzgerald run lots of routes underneath, and then runs whoever's in the slot. I think it was Christian Kirk most of the time on like a 20-yard corner on an out, and Earl Thomas would come up into the box. The corner thought he'd have help behind him, and I think it was 3 times this game they caught them out doing that. If they had Jefferson back there with Thomas, it wouldn't have been a problem, but because of how many guys they got, they're playing single high, and they made the most of it. So this offense has a viable way of living and surviving in the NFL, but I guess what I would ask you is, the problem is when they get to the red zone.
Yeah, this is what frustrates me about the whole Kliff Kingsbury conversation, if we want to have that one. Because there's a lot of talk of guru-ness, right? And I understand that it's easy to cite statistics like the one you just said where they're averaging X number of receivers a game. What did you say it was? Basically
3.53, yeah.
All right, so basically 4, and then not having a tight end on the field. But as we just said, they're still using the role of what would traditionally be a tight end. Larry Fitzgerald would time running like a tight end right now, would he not?
Yeah.
Right? So we've seen this offense with the Patriots in 2011. We watched it happen. We've seen the Eagles basically run all of these play concepts, just not as consistently. So it's not as revolutionary as some somehow seem to believe now. That the splits between the linemen are bigger. They've actually condensed them from what they did in preseason. But I don't think it's as radical as some would like to say. So I really don't think it's play calling or play design in the red zone. It's sequencing, it's play calling.
Yeah.
And
but would you say with spreading everyone out like that, when you've only got 8 yards to run, it makes it harder to design up effective plays?
No, I think the exact opposite. I think if I could draw an offense, if I could dream up an offense right now that I think would be unstoppable, my number 1 overall draft pick would be peak Cam Newton or peak Deshaun Watson. I want to be able to clear out the box through play design, through my alignment, right? And even if it's 8 yards, I don't give a fuck. Let's get as wide as possible. Give me one guy in the box, one-on-one with my mobile quarterback, and I'll take my chances.
Yeah, I guess Arizona want to do that. They just don't have the line for it right now.
They don't have the line for it. They've made some bad reads, and it just hasn't worked yet. But I will say this over and over again as we do the show, because I think it gets lost all the time in NFL analysis. The other team has good players too.
Yeah.
We just discussed how good the Ravens are and how the one guy left in the box is more than likely going to the Hall of Fame. If they could give him the jersey, the gold jacket the day he retired, they would do. So the other team can make great plays. The other team has a better line than you. It has a better linebacking core than you have blockers at tight end or whatever position you throw in there. So it's going to happen. They don't have good enough players right now across the board.
Yeah. So just to summarize this Arizona offense, do you think they're going to be able to win some games this year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't gamble, but I got to imagine the scariest thing in the sport right now is Kyler Murray, because the spread is going to be so high because the Cardinals are terrible, or should be terrible. And yet, like we saw in week 1, they can be playing poorly. Suddenly Kyler ignites. I mean, he is just electric out of the pocket and inside the pocket. And what has frustrated me most, so for new listeners, I guess everyone's a new listener, my background is as a college football scout, covering the draft, working for scouting services, working for a college team. That's my background. Then I became a writer. So everything for me is almost through the prism of the draft. That's almost my entire footballing consciousness. I cannot believe, and Harry loves college football too, so I know this will drive you bonkers as well.
Yeah.
And you particularly love the draft. That's your college football prism as well.
Yeah.
The amount of people seemingly confused, and these are smart, like scheme-based NFL writers, confused that Kyler is a pass-first guy. It's like, that's what he does. He's moving to throw for the most part. He has those ridiculous runs like the one against Texas. They exist, on his Oklahoma tape, but he is a lethal, like next-level passer. Every single throw you want, the bucket throws, which is the rarest one, sight reads, hot throws, everything you could ever want from just a pure drop back passer, he has it all. He should have been the first overall pick if he had no legs, right? If it was just his throwing. The fact that he is also the quickest guy in the field is a remarkable benefit. So I think that him in that system is the dream of all dream fits. He's going to make Kliff Kingsbury look smart because he's so incredible. I mean, how many throws the first 2 weeks have you just been like your jaw on the floor? Probably 5, right? The second half
He's been
this game. It's just these painting masterpieces. So yeah, he will have at least 2 games. I think it will be like Cam's rookie season, where he'll just have 2 or 3 games where the roster did not deserve to win, but he is so transcendently great that they will win games, and it will take time to build a team around him.
He threw, I know, and this is something we don't really want to see in quarterbacks, but when he had to, because their line stinks, he threw off his back foot really well in this game. Because he's got an arm. Just because he's small, people think he can't throw the ball. He's got a cannon if he needs it. But it's there. And that's something that annoys me, just through the stereotype of his height, that apparently he can't throw the ball. But it's something to track and something to watch throughout the season. And I guess he'll move from one electric quarterback to another. Lamar Jackson, 2 weeks, albeit, again, people say the opposition. But this guy is a completely different player from he was to last year. Greg Roman has got his hands on him, and it's looking pretty good, isn't it?
I mean, he's finishing what he started in San Francisco. This was the dream. This was the vision. And it's just re-coming together. Same thing as back then. A bulldozing offensive line. Ronnie Stanley, when are we going to start talking about him as being like one of the 3 best in the game? I mean, there's no one who quite combines that level of explosiveness, because Trent just doesn't have it anymore. Tyron is always injured. I can't think of someone off the top of my head who is as explosive outside of Tunsil, but Tunsil is all explosiveness. If he loses early in the rep, he is done for. That is not Stanley. He was going up against a master of the position, and he just owned him.
He played hurt all of last year and nobody even realised, which kind of tells you that he's a very good player. And yeah, I think this line is probably one of the most underrated in the league when you really sit down and look at it. I mean,
I think they got their due. The playoff run really helped them because it was rush only and everyone's like, Lamar can't throw, and then they got a lot of praise then as a group. I think they get lost individually outside of Yonder.
Yeah. I mean, you look at all the media was saying, well, there's no left guard. They're screwed. We traded Alex Lewis to the Jets, and everyone thought, oh, okay, it'll be Jermaine Illuminor traded to the Patriots. How often do you see your starter, then your second starter gone within 2 days of each other? And everyone was like, well, it's over. And then up step Bradley Bozeman, drafted from Alabama last year. One sack. He's had a few mistakes here and there, but he's been really good at pulling in the run game.
Yeah.
They asked the left guard to pull more than any other team in the NFL, which you would say is easy to read, but teams can't stop it, so they keep doing it.
Yep.
And then you've got Matt Skura on the veteran minimum at centre. He's creeped towards average, as people say in the league. He's just fine. You've got Orlando Brown at right tackle. He's learning, but he's a bloody bulldozer. They run to the right almost every time if they need to, because on short yardage, because he's massive. And you're not getting through him.
That helps.
This is an exciting line. I mean, I get quite passionate about offensive line talk sometimes because people don't realise that there's an art to it. And I think these guys, they're all finally healthy and they've got a chance to be really good this year.
I mean, without doubt.
And then I just realised I went on a tangent for 10 minutes about offensive linemen when we were meant to be talking about Lamar Jackson, the most explosive athlete. Talking about fat guys.
I prefer the fat guy talk, you know me. So I'm fine if we don't have quarterback talk constantly. The thing with Lamar that's just different this year is the anticipation. I mean, the seam ball throws that he was missing and sailing badly last year, he just hits perfectly in stride now. And this is the development you're supposed to make. You're supposed to have iffy moments in the first year. You're supposed to be rough around the edges. The team is supposed to adapt to you as much as you adapt to them. It's a two-way street. And they have the perfect blend right now, and they're going to gel, and they're going to blitz everyone.
Yeah. And one thing I will say is that he ran the ball better than he ever has this week. Designed runs, all between 9 and 19 yards. They'd run the same play concept with Mark Ingram on the outside zone. Then the next play, they'll line up exactly the same. Take the ball, bootleg, 10 yards, gone. Just because Chandler Jones collapsed inside. If he sees him collapse, he's gone. 10 yards. No risk, no hits. And it's cheating, almost.
It is. Well, it's as the whole point of the spread option and some of the pistol stuff they run is to make it one-on-one football across the board. And their one is better than all of yours. Like, he is just a better player in space than anybody on any football field he walks. Maybe Luke Kuechly. But that's the only person who can match him. So, if we're playing one-on-one football and he reads it right, it's game over.
Yeah. And, this is going to be really exciting. They go into Kansas City next week. This is going to be a big-time game. I just hope it lives up to the expectation. Often they don't, do they? But
we had Rams Chiefs last year, and that was as fun as football's ever been. So I'm hopeful.
And I guess just to summarise, I'll just summarise this Ravens team. You've got that tight end trio: Nick Boyle, Hayden Hurst. Mark Andrews is the best graded player in all of football right now.
We can go back and forth on PFF grades if you want.
I know, but as in, he's a superstar, and he is the second tight end drafted in the Ravens' own draft class. So that's another rising star. Like, there's just so much talent on this team, man. But yeah, I think that's a good breakdown of probably the most exciting matchup of the week. Anything else?
Can I ask you one final thing? How fun is it to root for Hollywood Brown?
Oh my God.
Isn't it the greatest thing ever?
I mean, the guy, he just like... I would compare him to, and sorry to American listeners here, I would compare him to prime time Mesut Ozil where he seemingly glides. Like his legs don't move.
No,
he just glides and he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Through defenders. I mean, he played 50 snaps this game. So all the talk about the list, Frank, it looks like, touching wood, fingers crossed, all of those things, that he's okay. It's just amazing to see a guy so small and so slight just tear it up.
Scary sight in football is probably him on a jet motion. on the offense, because you have no idea where the ball's going to go. Is he going to have it? Is he running with it? Is he going to be a pass option in the flat? Is Lamar going to pull it? Is Lamar going to run it? Is Lamar going to throw it downfield? That offensive line is really big, and now we're in trouble with 9 different thoughts. That's the scariest offensive play in football right now.
And I think that just goes to show where the Ravens are this year compared to last year, is that we almost forgot Hollywood Brown there. We've touched so many points and so many players. And you're like, oh yeah, this guy. Oh, that guy. Yeah. And it's like, wow. I don't want to hype them up too much because this is a young team. This is year one. Mm-hmm. They had the learning process, they had the last half of last season again. And they played some really poor teams last year. Everyone was saying Lamar Jackson, who's 6-1 as a starter. They played some terrible football teams.
Yeah. We're good.